Mr. Filkov, what in your opinion restrict journalists and media in Macedonia to work with integrity and respect for the public interest and professional standards?
I think there are a couple of reasons. First, journalists and media lost their not easily acquired place in the democratic society, and that should be blamed on low tradition in professional journalism in Macedonia, which was only for 10 to 15 years since independence until 2000 and something, 5, 6, I don't know. These 10 to 15 years were insufficient to make professional journalism business as usual in Macedonia media. We thought that in that period we acquired some very good standards of our profession, but it turned that those standards were very fragile, uncertain, and easily media and journalists became what today we can see plenty of unprofessional journalism, media serving center of powers instead of serving citizens and society, and so on and so on. Another very important reason is that media owners in Macedonia, their own business wasn't media themselves, but something else. That situation made them very fragile to put their media, to employ their media to serve to those center of powers, to politicians, to politics, to business, to the profit, and then it makes them easily fragile to all happenings. At the end, they put media in service of those center of powers and not in citizens, because media were only tools in their hands to make their other businesses running and earning profit. Another important reason is the constant economic crisis in all countries, especially in Macedonia and neighboring countries, this endless transitional process. I think media were one of the greatest damages of the transitional process, because transition never ends in Macedonia and in countries around us. All these reasons, and not to forget journalists at the end. Journalists themselves, they somehow forgot, or they easily change in this situation, in the new situation. They were not strong enough to fight for the rights. First for the rights, working rights. Then they were not strong to stand in the first lines of the war against first journalists against editors, and then editors against owners, and then owners against the politicians. So many battles were lost in this only 20-something years, which is very, very bad.
What kind of strategies the journalists use to stay employed?
This is maybe a question that should be posed to journalists themselves, but I have a lot of friends, journalists, I'm meeting them every day, so from what I can say from their saying is that they work under big pressure. Self-censorship is common in everyday work. Then they practically, I have nothing against shoe factories, but they practically work as to be employed in shoe factory. They don't employ their minds. They compromising every day their integrity, at the end a chance to earn trust in the public, because by staying in these conditions, by working for very unusual working conditions in society, at the end maybe they will take their salary at the end of the month, but then the damage to the society is tremendous, and I don't think that anyone can assess the level of this damage. Here I have to mention what Bill Kovac and Tom Rosenstiel from Committee of Concerned Journalists refers to be the basic elements of journalists. I would like to repeat them, to read them, because I think none of these elements, basic elements of journalism, are in place in Macedonia. Journalism's first obligation is to the truth. Its first loyalty is to the citizens. Its essence is a discipline of verification. Its participants must maintain independence from those they cover. It must serve as an independent monitor of power. It must provide a forum for public criticism and compromise. It must strive to make the significant interesting and relevant. It must keep the news comprehensive and proportional. And the last one, its practitioners must be allowed to exercise their personal conscience. If you go one by one, none of these elements is we can see in this in everyday journalism in Macedonia. And I think first thing next morning journalists should do is to go back to these elements and to ask themselves why they still, as you ask, what they need to do to work in these conditions, to stay in this situation.
Mm-hmm. Again, I'm asking for your opinion. Are there any possible solutions for solving this situation?
Here I'm pretty much pessimistic, even though I have a couple of suggestions. I don't think they can be easily employed, because it took more than 20 years to come in this situation, and usually takes twice more to go out. So hopefully some of these recommendations will be implemented in the practice. First, we have to deal with governmental commercials. We have to tighten this regulation that allow government on all level, not only government, public companies to buy media by pouring money in commercials, and then media to report very favorable for the government or for these other state companies. Then journalists to try to free from fear, and here I think their associations can help. Then citizens need to support more those media who they think report news in professional way, by buying them, by watching them, by listening them more and more and more. At the end, no media can exist without commercials, without public, without money. So maybe citizens can help in this, and governments and other centers of power to try to understand media role on a long run, not only on the short run. One government can be in power, I don't know, 4, 8, 12 years. One businessman can earn big profits based on their play with media on very short term, but on the long term, if society is not built on very solid ground, then you cannot have people to whom you will govern. You will not have consumers to buy your products. So I think everybody should think on very long run concerning media, regarding media, because I think it's not necessary to repeat media's role in society. But to go back to journalists, I think first journalists can do much more than they are doing now at the moment. They have to change their mind. They have to play their real role, not only in society, but first in their own media.